Unexpected health crisis, job loss, family emergency, and more. In this video, I'm going to share some powerful stories highlighting the importance of having an emergency fund as well as a bonus tip. You don't want to miss this, and so let's dive in. Warning, warning. While building an emergency fund can feel like you're doing something right, it should not be a priority if you're still paying a large amount of money to credit card interest. My recommendation before you build any emergency fund is to take care of your high interest debt. I define this as any loans or debt that has an interest rate higher than 10%. Considering you've taken care of those, then you should right away start building an emergency fund. Let's first define what is an emergency fund. An emergency fund is basically a stash of money that is set aside for, you guessed it, emergencies. The rule of thumb is to have at least 3 to 6 months worth of needs. Needs can be defined by the minimum amount of money to cover necessary expenses. I include housing, food, of course, reasonable food don't count, like restaurants or Uber Eats, right? Transportation, insurance, as well as minimum payments. So in other words, you have to be in a hashtag survival mode. Now you may be thinking, why do I need an emergency fund? I can always use my credit cards or borrow money from friends and family. Well, here are 7 different stories, including one of my personal own experience on how having an emergency fund can actually save lives and help you avoid unnecessary debt and stress. Story number 1, the unexpected health crisis. Meet Sarah. She was a healthy 26 years old working as a freelance graphic designer. One day, however, she began experiencing intense stomach pain and was rushed to the hospital. Turned out she actually needed an emergency surgery for her appendicitis. Now, this would be a very stressful situation for anyone, but Sarah had an emergency fund saved up. So instead of racking massive medical bills and stressing about how to pay for them, she was able to actually focus on recovery. Bonus fact: 66.5% of US bankruptcy are tied to medical issues. Emergency funds can protect you against this financial threat. Story number 2, the job loss nightmare. Next up, we have John. John was working in the event industry, and when the pandemic hit, he was suddenly finding himself out of a job. With no idea of where he would be able to find another job, he started to panic. But he had a secret weapon: his emergency fund. John has saved enough to cover his living expenses for 6 months. This gave him the breathing room he needed to find a new job without the added stress of mounting bills and debt. Bonus fact: in the US, the average duration of unemployment in 2023 is 21 weeks. That's about 5 months. Story number 3, the car catastrophe. Coming up, we have Emily, 24 years old, grad student. While driving home one day, she was involved into a car accident. Thankfully, she wasn't injured, but her car was totaled. And since she relied on her car for school and work, she needed a replacement ASAP. Instead of taking out a high-interest loan or maxing her credit cards, Emily tapped into her emergency fund. This allowed her to buy a reliable used car without getting buried in debt. Bonus fact: Americans spend an average of $1,200 a year on auto repairs. Story number 4, the broken home appliance. Let's talk about Mike, 28 years old who just moved into his first apartment. A few months after settling in, his refrigerator suddenly stopped working. And as if this wasn't enough, his washing machine as well broke down just a few days later. Mike could have been in a tough spot, but luckily he had an emergency fund. He was able to purchase a new refrigerator and washing machine without relying on credit card or loan. Crisis averted. Bonus fact: US homeowners spend an average of $9,000 a year on home maintenance. Story number 5, the natural disaster. Meet 35 years old Laura and her family living in a small town near the coast. When a massive hurricane struck the area, they were forced to evacuate their home. They returned to find their house severely damaged and the cost of repair far exceed their insurance coverage. Laura had built a sustainable emergency fund over the years, which helped them afford temporary housing and start the necessary repair on their home. Without the emergency fund, they may have faced homelessness or a mountain of debt. Bonus fact: the US experience over 1,000 tornadoes annually. Story number 6, the family emergency. Our next story is about Rachel. Rachel is 23 years old, living across the country from a family. When she got the call that her father had suffered a heart attack, she knew she had to fly home immediately. With the high cost of last-minute flights, Rachel could have easily drained a bank account or maxed out her credit cards. But because she had an emergency fund, she was able to book a flight without hesitation and be by her father during a critical time. Bonus fact. The average cost of a domestic round-trip airfare in the United States is about $400, and sometimes last minute can easily double, even triple in price. Story number 7, and close to my heart, the vet emergency. I have myself a small French bulldog at home, and a couple of months ago he decided to chew and swallow one of his plastic toys. We rushed to the emergencies and we found that the only solution was a full surgery. Passing through the details, the total amount that we were billed was over $6,000. Thanks that I had paid insurance at the time to help me out, but I still had to pay over $1,000 out of pocket. So imagine I did not have this money available. Worst case, no pet insurance. There is a chance my dog will not be here with us today. Bonus fact. The average cost of a vet emergency surgery varies between $1,500 and up to $10,000. So look guys, as you can see from those real stories, having an emergency fund can make a world of difference when life throws you a curveball. It can not only save you the financial stress, but also give you the peace of mind to focus on what really matters. So if you haven't started building an emergency fund, now it's the time to do it. Start small and gradually increase your savings. Here is a bonus tip, I promise. When building an emergency fund, place your money into what we call the high-yield saving account. There are plenty of apps out there that can provide you up to 5% interest per year. This helps you fight inflation, what still gives you all the benefits of immediately accessible funds. Now it's your turn. If you haven't started building an emergency fund, now it's the time to do it. Share your experience in the comments below if you had an experience when an emergency fund would have helped out. Thank you so much for joining us today on Wealth Explained. We hope you enjoyed today's discussion and picked up some valuable tips. Check out our other segments, including Finance Actions that deals with real financial struggle and stories and how we get them out. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and we see you next time. À bientôt.